Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And as you can see by the title card, we're working on the Ford Louisville, the CP Express A train again. And at this point, I don't even know if I'm going to be completing it this episode. I hope so, because it's the project that went on way, way too long. So most of the work we have to do on this episode is finishing off the tractor. And you can see I'm holding the bonnet, the hood, the flip nose. And because I really want to get this done, I'm going to make it more complicated. So the AMT kit, it basically portrays what I like to call the plain nose, the basic nose. There was basically two different noses or nose treatments that were used on the Ford Louisville. We're not going to count the LTL 9000 with the big huge chunk of plastic that looks amazing. And if you look up here, I'll put a card for the playlist for my Ford LTL 9000 wrecker kit build. And you can see what that looks like. And that's probably about the most amazing looking nose on a Louisville. But this is the plain one here. Basically what we have here is this on the real truck was all fiberglass. And then we have this insert. And, you know, for years I was thinking that this was too busy, that this really wasn't accurate. But I've looked at some photos and I've determined that we have the right number of horizontal bars, 7, and the right number of vertical bars, 6, for either the regular or the plain version. That's good news. Means I don't have to recreate this part. If you're doing the plain version, you just glue this in place, although you should paint this area black. You could correctly leave it body color, and a lot of the real trucks were like that. It looked like crap. Or you could paint this white, or you could make it really rusty. A lot of them were like that. So anyway, you know what? I'm going to show you some pictures of the plain and the deluxe so you can see what I'm talking about. Allow me to show you a selection of what I call the bare bones, basic, plain noses of the Ford Louisville. As you can see, the center part is chrome, and it's basically a stamped piece of metal that's been chromed. And the opening in behind it doesn't even take up the full size of the grill. A lot of it is blanked off. Now this piece of tin wasn't always of the best quality. Sometimes all the chrome was rusted off, and many times this part is painted white. And usually the worst appearance is when they've painted the whole thing white, and the areas that are blanked off, you paint those white too. Looks terrible. Here's what I like to call the deluxe nose. Notice that there's a very, very wide chrome lip all the way around the opening. And you know what? I used to think that the grill work was basically different between the two, between the deluxe and the plain version. But in terms of horizontal and vertical bars, they're about the same. I don't know if the center part was removable or if it was integral to the one with the big chrome lip on it. And you know what? Through the years, I have gone from preferring the plain version to preferring the deluxe version as we see here, and going back again. And I don't know what my favorite is now. Seeing as I've got a fair number of these Louisville kits with all kinds of different projects in mind, I want to do at least one of them with the chrome lips as you see here. Right, so how can I make this deluxe version come about? I'm not going to have to do a huge amount of work to this. I think I'm just basically going to have to thin it down a bit, because it's a little too heavy and solid to be a piece of stamped sheet metal. That's not a big deal. The opening, I'm not going to have to do anything with that. Just going to have to paint it black when the time comes. Over top of the headlights, you can see that this has a hard edge to it. That needs to be rubbed down, softened off up a bit. Not a big deal. The biggest thing we're going to have to do is to bare metal foil this lip. Put some chrome lipstick on it, so to speak. To facilitate that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to scribe a slight line just at the edge of where I want that chrome to go to. Nothing too major, just enough to provide a backstop So when I put the bare metal foil in there, I have a place to run a knife, and I'll probably end up tearing the bare metal foil half a dozen times, and I'll get all frustrated and everything. But hopefully it will be worth it. Having determined that this project, which I've been long thinking was going to be one of the hardest parts of this build, might be a whole lot easier than I thought. It won't be. But anyway, I'll bring you back after I do some sanding to this. Okay, you can see I've pretty much sanded all of the edges where there was mold lines on the AMT casting, and this should be a fairly smooth part. It shouldn't have too many sharp edges on it. None, actually, really, if you think about it. So that's been sanded down. Let's see what kind of a hack job I can do on scribing a line pretty much all the way around here. All right, let the destruction begin. You're probably looking at this saying, that looks like electrical tape. Well, it is. It has a little bit more of thickness to it than masking tape. Hopefully it will resist a scriber a little bit better. Dymo tape would be the best, but I don't have any of that, and I don't even know where I could even get it anymore. So we'll see how we do with this. It only has to be just a little bit of a line. It doesn't have to be like a big trench. I don't know how well it shows, but I've scribed a line all the way around the perimeter of what I'm hoping is going to be my chrome grill, my chrome lips. And I've also sanded the back side of the AMT part, as well as the edges, just to make it a slightly loose fit. If I stop dropping it, a slightly loose fit. The idea being is, if it's a loose fit, if I paint black all around the edges, I'll end up with the black line that we're supposed to have on the finished grill. As an illustration of how out of control this project got, I made this mold in November of 2020, and I just never got around to peeling it. Let's see if it comes off cleanly. This is one tough mold. It's had plenty of time to set up, but this area down here is what I'm mainly concerned with, is where the muffler is and the heat shield. I was going to put a piece of styrene pipe on the top. So one of the things I still have to achieve is the air deflector for the roof, and the snowplow kit does not come with that. AMT's Mack truck does come with it. It's slightly different. It seems to have a little bit more of a sharp edge here than what we see on this one. And here is the part out of the kit. But I'm thinking it's pretty close. So I know that I'm not going to need it for what I eventually am going to do with the Mack truck. I'm not going to need an air deflector. Already I can see people trying to figure out what's he going to do with it. He doesn't need an air deflector. Oh! So I think I'm going to save myself a little bit of time and effort. I'm going to modify this part. Probably sand these two folds here. I'll fill in these two little gaps right here, and I'll make this work for our Ford Louisville. Now the Mack air deflector would have you install kind of this, shark fin thing here at the front in these spaces, whereas the air deflector that we find on the Louisville, it's all smooth and all the support is behind. So as you can see, I've glued in some styrene here, and I'm going to be putting some putty in there, and I'm going to just smooth it all out a little bit later. As well, I have to address, we focus in, you can see there's some nasty ejector pin marks here on the back. We need to get rid of those too. I'll do those with the Dremel tool. As you can see here, I've poured my exhausts here into the mold. My sitting on the original for 1 year mold. My mold is still intact. I can use that for another day. There's my parts. Now, this is not going to be a super shiny, beautiful exhaust. This is going to be kind of a grungy, steel, rusty gray color, if that's such a thing. So, basically, this is the part I need to hear. I've got our cab in place, not permanently, but mocked up, and You may remember that our exhaust only came up to here previously. Well, I've bent up an old piece of sprue to get us to this point. And here's our casting that we did from that old Italy part. And if I just pop this in place, you can see that we're a little high. Okay, I think we want it to only be maybe halfway up the window, at least when I look at the picture of the real truck. The muffler and the shroud only came up to about halfway the height of the window. So I'm going to trim a little bit off the top of this. There, I think that's a better height. And I'm going to work on the actual upper part of the pipe here. Once again, it's just, I don't know if I already mentioned it, but I'm just taking sprue and I'm heating it over a soldering iron to do my various bends and things. That's how you do it. And here's our stack assembly completed. It obviously requires paint. This little flap here is a bracket that's going to go to the back of the cab. That was one thing about these trucks, is they didn't have a separate stand that went up to hold the exhaust. They were bolted directly to the back of the cab. And that was a feature that ended up making these trucks probably a little bit less popular than the newer Freightliners that were replacing them. This is going to require some probably neutral gray with a little bit of silver mixed in with it, and then of course more rustiness added to it. Okay, we've got our exhaust glued in place here. I've given it a coat of neutral gray. I'm going to be putting some more rusties and grungies on it. This bit of the handle here, I'm going to be painting that basically chrome silver, because handles tend to get polished by people handling them. So these white structures here at the back, they are the ramps that a lot of tractors have in order to get under trailers. And they're going to be painted the same color as the frame. And then I'm going to be guffing up the top surface here. Next thing I'm going to be working on is the mud flaps. So a couple days ago, I got this in the mail. This is going to be a solution to part of my lettering problems with our CP Express and Transport tractor. And that is the lettering on the cab. Of course, that's white lettering, and it's almost impossible to do white lettering these days. So these decals, they are for HO scale. That's 1/87 scale. So you can see they're basically the same design that I already created for my trailers, just much, much smaller. We should be able to use the CP Express and Transport for our doors. Comme ça. Now that won't be exact. As you can see, if we switch back here, they have the CP Express all on one line and Transport on the next line. So it's arranged a little differently. I don't care. This is way better than what I'm going to end up with otherwise. So that is a problem solved. Now I will have to check to see how well this blue matches up with the blue that I'm going to be using. If it's close, I'm not too worried about it, but I might make some adjustments. So I would get more done if I would actually do work. Work being work on my hobbies. I was off work for the paying type for about 2.5 weeks with a back injury, and you'd think that would give me a big opportunity to get hobby stuff done, but no. I find that when my back is really bothering me, it's like having a really bad headache. I don't feel like doing anything. Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot. If we look at the decal sheet, which I think I showed off, you can see that I've got a bunch of splotches of blue here, and that's basically I'm trying to come close to the blue that came in the decals. Now, this isn't going to make any sort of a difference because all I'm using of this is just a little rectangle right here. So it doesn't matter that I've got kind of blue up to it. So I'm just getting ready to actually do our blue. So we've got our nose, which is pretty much ready to go. Hopefully the cab right here. And I don't think there's a whole lot that needs to still be done on this. We have our air deflector. And basically I rounded things off a little bit and I think it'll be a good stand-in for what was on the actual CP units here. And then I've got the bumper. So I'm going to have to put some striping here on because the bumper basically was white with blue stripes. Here's our masking for the logo on the air deflector. This is going to be a reverse. It's just going to be what would normally be white on the logo is now going to be blue, and what would be blue and black on the logo is going to be white. And here's the bumper masked. All right, the painting is done. Here's the bumper and the cab proper. This is how our air deflector turned out. And I've put a ruler on it, and I think it's off center by like maybe 2 millimeters this way, but it's close enough. I think it certainly looks like it should. So there's going to be a framework put on the back, and I'm going to touch up the back because this is where I had it taped, so it's going to require a little bit more paint back there. I'm literally down to my last 1 or 2 drops of this paint color. So the next step is going to be, if you recall earlier, I scribed a line all the way around here. So the next step is going to be to put the chrome lip on, because we're making this kind of the deluxe version of the hood. Okay, there is the bare metal foil applied, and I've just picked out the Ford lettering there, and let's put the grill in place, and there we go. Wow, that was way more satisfying than I thought it was going to be. This looks exactly like I want it to. Looks very much like the deluxe package that was on many Ford Louisvilles with the big chrome lip and the chrome grille. And these really stood the test of time really well. I think very rarely did I see one with the chrome ring look all rusty and scuzzy. The cheaper version, which was just fiberglass with a metal insert on the inside, those did not age well, but these did. So anyway, yeah, that was something that I was dreading doing because I thought it was going to be difficult. And scribing that line all the way around definitely worked. I've got the supporting framework for our air deflector put together. And basically I just based it on what I could see from our reference photo. It's probably not exact, but it's certainly engineering-wise is plausible. More than likely, it had an adjustable angle, but you know darn well it was probably put in place and left like that forever. So this is going to get a coat of steel, and then it's going to be heavily rusted. Now, if we go all the way back to episode 1 of this project, which was more than a year ago, you'll recall that we extended our hood to make a long hood version. Well, of course, that's going to screw up this part here. This is the air cleaner, and here you can see this is the bit that would go to the firewall. Well, I've had to extend that so that it's still supported by the firewall. I'm hopefully racing towards completion on this project. What you're seeing here, this is going to be the Pintle hook for the back of the tractor. And this is for what they call the dolly haul, which is when they're getting ready to put together a set of A-trains, they have to take the converter or the dolly, that's the little two-wheel bit that goes between the trailers. They have to position that, and they'll be doing it using this Pintle hook at the end of the tractor, and there's a label right on it that says dolly haul only, which means you can't put it underneath a trailer and then drive around pulling it that way. It's not stressed for that. So anyway, you can see I've drilled a hole through the piece of this beefy plastic here, and I'm going to be refining the shape until I've got the the Pintle hook ready to go. So here we can see the shape is further refined. You can see that there's a bit of a gap right there, and another one farther up. That's the top part of the ring that opens up, And when I put it on the model, there's going to be a little handle on there to open that up. One of these days, I'm going to have to find a good one and make a mold of it, because these are really annoying to carve out. And here we have our mud flaps installed. This has the kit part. This one just has a plain one. Because let's face it, these things got torn up and lost a lot. So they got replaced over the years. I just chose to go with something plain here. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. So the only thing really we still need on the back here is the last plate, which will contain the dolly haul and the taillights. That's all we have left to do back here now. And here's our last cross member with our Pintle hook, which is suitable only for the dolly haul. We can see I've got the kit taillights on there. All this needs a coat of semi-gloss black before I install it on the tractor. And hopefully we're checking off the last few boxes here of things that need to be done. Here's a quick look at all that back end stuff before I paint it all up. And the detail gets lost in the semi-gloss black and rust. Have I mentioned my pet peeve about kit mirrors before? Oh well, at least the reflector side, the side that you should be, actually using as a mirror, are nice and flat. As you can see, the front side has a nasty ejector pin mark on it. Oh well, AMT, you're not the only one who's guilty of this. And here's the front sides once I've cleaned them up. Well, I guess that's what they make bare metal foil for. And speaking of boxes which need to be checked off, we need numbers for our trailers. And you can see I've got a bunch of numbers printed out here on a piece of bulk decal film. And yeah, there's an awful lot of just 2 numbers. And there's a reason for that. It's basically the blue I like, and I generated these off of my steam-powered computer. The only problem is when you photocopy them and get a color photocopy made, and that's when you find a place who's willing to put this stuff in their photocopier, the ink ends up, or I should say the toner ends up being very translucent. It's hard to tell here because it's on a light blue background, but when you put it on the model, it becomes almost completely transparent. I've learned through painful experience to have many of these printed up, so that way I can put on 2 or 3 layers. Now on our trailer with the silver finish, I only needed the same decal put on twice for it to look good. So that was good. And this other trailer here, this is the one that, oh, does not look funky. This one required 3 layers of decal to get a good layer of opacity, I guess is the best term. Among the many last-minute details to put on, we have the hood catches. These represent the big metallic ones that Ford only seem to use. As well on the back here, we have what looks like a towel rack, and that's for a sliding hook that'll hold onto our air hoses. Well, if there's one thing that's certain, it's hard to photograph. This is one big model. But it's done. It's finally all finished. Or as finished as it's going to be for this video. And I'm pretty sure I started this about 1.5 years ago. And it's taken this long for, well, reasons. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of it completed here, and then we'll have a bunch of glamour shots. Basically, the highlights are the grill has got the chrome surround, and the wheels are spoked wheels, and those are resin castings that I made myself. And of course the first trailer is pretty much as AMT intended it. The only additions I made there were for the heaters and the nosedive gear, and of course we have the propane tank down below. The second trailer, everything above the floorboards is scratch built, and we'll be looking at the doors, the rear doors of that one. But I deliberately did not want a match set. If you go all the way back to the first episode, you'll understand why I did this project. I used to work for a security company. Our job was to guard the terminal for Canadian Pacific Express and Transport in Ottawa, Ontario. I did that for about a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. So this is a project that was a little personal to me. So I've reduced her down to the cab. Of course, this is a Ford Louisville long nose, as you may remember from episode number 1. We basically extended the hood by about, just over a centimeter. It was enough to get the back parts of the fenders attached to the hood. The Ford Louisville is one of these vehicles that you don't realize how many variations there are in them, but they certainly were probably one of the most ubiquitous trucks from the 70s and 80s that were on the roads. I mean, yes, Peterbilts and Kenworths were more glamorous, but a lot of the freight was handled by Louisvilles in International S-Series. So I didn't change the length of the frame. This started off as AMT's snowplow kit. It comes with the fifth wheel. I put the ramps in myself. They give you hoses, mostly for the hydraulics, but you can use them for the airlines. The ends of the airlines I've just tucked down in here behind the frame, mostly because I didn't actually put the connectors on. I don't know how you could easily connect them up and take them apart over and over again, so I just chose to have them tucked down. But I'm fairly happy with how it turned out. It looks like what I wanted it to. So here we've got a shot of the fronts of the trailers. You can see that the heater boxes, of course, have been scratch built. The logos that are on there aren't supposed to represent anything in particular. I just felt that it was screaming out for some sort of a logo. In fact, this is the Railbox logo with the arrows cut off, turned 90 degrees. And these were from N-scale freight cars. So that's where they came from. Same thing with the various data plates and warnings. They came off of N-scale equipment. The bevel nose trailer, that pretty much represents a design that Manic made here, I believe in the late 70s, early 80s. And this, of course, is a Trailmobile outside post van. And here we have a close-up of the rear of the trailers. Once again, this is the smooth side chamfer nose, which was based on a Manic design. And this is the Trailmobile trailer, basically built stock from the box. The door is as you get it from AMT. The only thing that's really been added down here is the glide hand connections. All of these fittings and the hinges and everything, they're resin castings from another kit. I basically created a couple molds and cast those in resin. And here's a few glamour shots to close out our video. If you followed the project from start to finish, thanks for your patience and your interest. And until next time, just keep on modeling.